love being an atheist. I enjoy the freedom, the lack of judgment and expectations that atheists just don't have for me. We don't have a set rule of dogma and church rules where you have to believe these 30 things in order to qualify to call yourself an atheist. No, we're just atheists because we don't believe in the existence of God. And what else we believe or don't believe in has nothing to do with being an atheist, unless you want to make it important. And that's why 38 for me is important. Church taught me that monogamy should be everyone's goal. But when I embraced atheism, I learned that not everyone wants that. I grew up in Christianity where they told me that the most important decision of your life is who you married, and that monogamy, fidelity were the best things to bring into a partnership. Well, that and your virginity, which is disgusting. So, to grow up, change religions, rejecting all religion and religious thought, and finally finding out that every relationship is valuable and worthy of respect, provided everyone is old enough to consent and want to be together. Our society, especially in North America, devalues and basically looks at it in disdain if marriage and monogamy aren't the end goal. I don't know of a single church, and I was in the extreme forms of fundamentalism. So leave thoughts and replies below if you've been in a church that didn't push marriage and monogamy. But what about relationships where monogamy isn't the goal, where marriage is not the goal? What about people who don't even want a relationship or get married? The asexual, aromantic, or a combination. Like, what do they do with these people? They erase them or ignore them. That's the answer. And we just assume that everyone wants exclusivity. We assume that women want marriage. We assume that they want children. And it's so limiting. If you really want monogamy, fine. But as long as you show equal respect to polygamists, well, it's illegal in America, but in countries where it is legal, or polyamorous, swinging, as long as everyone is old enough to consent and really wants to be there, why do we have heterosexual privilege? I mean, I've recently looked into things like polyamory or E&M, ethical non-monogamy. So, non-monogamy is a relationship structure where partners agree and consent to have multiple romantic or sexual partners with the knowledge and consent of everyone involved. This contrasts with infidelity because E&M is built on honesty, consent, and communication without secrecy. Common types of non-monogamy include polyamory, where partners have multiple loving relationships. Now, I always say that very few people on this planet have the emotional, mental, and verbal maturity to be polyamorous or have ethical non-monogamy. I don't think the average person has the maturity to be open, vulnerable, and honest to where this could work. And that's not my opinion, that's based on scientific fact. Because, I mean, let's be honest here. The average person, when you watch a show or a movie, you see that 99% of the people shown on television move toward monogamy, either immediately or there's a very big expectation that they will. And like I always say, it's fine if you want to be monogamous. Like, I think the majority of people on the planet will always be monogamous for several reasons. Social pressure, religious beliefs, federal and state income and tax benefits for married people, and society has kind of left behind the popular ideas of old about polygamy. I mean, women's lib, the average person would probably be canceled if you talked about polygamy on live television. If you said that polygamy is okay, you probably would be canceled. How many times have you seen on a movie or TV show where somebody was respected and applauded for having ethical monogamy or non-monogamy? I mean, be honest. I've only seen 3 times in 20 years of watching television where a woman or a man was respected for being polyamorous. I mean, there's what do they call it? There's just social expectation of monogamy. I mean, I watch a lot of Asian dramas and things like that. If people expected their partner to be anything but monogamous, I mean, oh boy, it just amazes me how men feel so entitled to women and their bodies. You would probably get beat up if a woman wanted to be polyamorous. Most men would call her a whore, and that's not an okay word to call anybody. Women, in their value, is in the patriarchy associated with monogamy. Men want to know who their kids are. Men believe they own women's bodies, if not legally, then socially, religiously. It's just the way it is. And it makes me sick, but that's just the way it is. So, it just never ceases to amaze me why people don't respect ethical non-monogamy, polyamory, open relationships. In my opinion, whatever makes both people happy, as long as their needs are met, maybe they want to have a lot more experiences. As long as the relationship creates a support network where everyone is heard, understood, and feels validated, that's the important part of a relationship. I just haven't gotten great feedback from heterosexual monogamous couples. I don't see a lot of great communication going on. I don't see consistent boundary setting. And it's a joke when people talk about monogamy, like non-monogamy. People make it out to be as a joke. They think men are promiscuous if they want to have multiple sex partners. And if a woman doesn't demand monogamy, they think she's a whore. We live in a society now that thinks that loyalty, fidelity is the same thing as love and compatibility. They're not. The most loyal, loving partners I have ever met in my life had open relationships, or they were polyamorous. The level of communication, trust, and intimacy they had and maintained was nothing that the average monogamy heterosexual relationship relationship could even replicate. It just can't. Because I don't know what it is, but when you have a different kind of relationship, you just naturally communicate more. Not all the time. I never want to say that every polyamorous relationship is healthy. I will never, ever lie and say that. There's just something about relationships that don't meet social norms. They just seem to communicate more. They seem to be safer in their skin. They know what they want. I mean, nothing is as sexy as someone who knows what they want and lives outside of normal gender roles. At least that's my opinion. And the last time I saw ethical non-monogamy was in, I think it was the most recent 13th season of King of the Hill. Bobby's ex-girlfriend was going through it. I haven't done much into it, but it was kind of interesting. And it's interesting how people give his ex-girlfriend, Khan's daughter, the runaround. They think she's crazy because she wants to have life experience, and she turns down Bobby because he's husband material. Some people, I would say very few people, are wired to be able to maintain and have great communication skills. So the average man, I don't think, is capable of ethical non-monogamy. I think women are more likely to be able to handle it, but the average woman and man are too jealous, possessive, and entitled to allow their partner, especially if their partner is a woman, the same rights and privileges of non-ethical monogamy. I mean, I watch a lot of Asian shows, and they get insanely jealous with being monogamous. I don't even want to know what kind of violence would happen if somebody said, you know what, I want to have multiple partners. Now, if I was in a relationship, would I want ethical non-monogamy? I don't know. I don't like having multiple sex partners due to STIs, but I've never been in a human relationship with somebody, so I don't know what I would want. I prefer having interests over partners. So whatever works for you and makes you and your partner happy, I don't care what you do. But our society, especially in religion, has little to no respect and sees almost no value in different ways people consensually live. I don't think the average man respects a woman enough and trusts her enough to even conceptualize non-ethical non-monogamy. They just can't. And very few people have the verbal and emotional maturity to state what they want, set boundaries, and have that level of trust. So, hopefully our society moves beyond the toxic expectations of, oh, you're dating, you must be monogamous.